Welcome to the GSMC Pets Podcast, the show that caters to pet lovers of all kinds. We'll talk about pets on social media, pets doing amazing things, and how to take care of the pets in your life. Whether your pet is a dog, a cat, a llama, hamster, reptile, or something more exotic, you'll find educational and entertaining information on the GSMC Pets Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're back to the GSMC Pet Podcast, brought to you by, again and again, the GSMC Podcast Network. Folks, I got a new microphone stand today, so I'm hoping this will really improve the sound quality. Before I had it dangling from from the arm. I don't know if you know what a microphone stand looks like. Mine isn't actually a stand, it's a big arm. Kind of like those lamps that you see in the Pixar movies where it, and jumps on the ball. It's one of those, but I didn't have the actual device that holds the microphone. So I just had it dangling there. And what I realized is that the way my microphone picks up sound, I wasn't talking into the part that actually picks up the sound. So I had to turn my head. It was all a bad thing. But hopefully this really increases the sound quality. I'm quite excited about it. I've had to do some weird adjustments to make it work in the past. So let me know. Let me know if you think this sounds better. I'll give it a listen to afterwards, obviously. Be the decider. But folks, welcome back. I'm your host, Taylor Cowan. It's good to see you again. Hear from you. Well, it's good for you to hear me. How about that? Folks, things are getting crazy out there, aren't they? Aren't we getting a little bored? Aren't we? I'm not, actually. Frankly, despite all the grimness, I'm rather enjoying myself. I had a couple of weeks off work. I don't mind. Spend more time with my pets. Take my dog for a walk, take him for runs, ride my bike more. I play in the backyard with my cat. Watch movies with my other cat, my more indoorsy one. If you don't know, my dog's named Ozzy. You're gonna get to know my pets while we go over this next few months. Well, as long as I'm hosting the pet podcast, I want you to get to know me, get to know my pets as well. We got Cat Stevens. He's right here next to me. Lady Stardust, named after a David Bowie song. A great song, by the way. I highly recommend it. It's off the album Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, if you're not familiar. My cat Stevens is here, Lady Stardust, and my dog Ozzy, who's an Australian Shepherd. And so I thought, I've got two musically named cats already. I may as well name the other one something music related as well. So there we go. We're there. That's the history of the names of my pets. Now, today, folks, you're all stuck inside. A lot of us are stuck inside. We're self-quarantining, doing what we got to do. We're going to talk about the best pet movies today. The whole episode. It's about the best pet movies. This is kind of like a GSMC Pet Podcast, movie podcast mashup. Unauthorized, but it's still pet related, so I'm going for it. And I don't know if they've done a movie or a pet movie podcast over at the movie podcast side, but I think they mostly focus on new movies over there. We're going to dive into some of the classics, some of my favorites, different genres. We'll do comedy, horror, kids, probably mostly kids. I had to go look up a list of pet movies to remind myself what's what. I can't remember them all off the top of my head, but most of them are kids' movies, as it turns out. Not very surprising, frankly. So let's get started. What are your pet movies? What are your favorite pet movies? Oh, geez, my dog just showed up. He's being loud. I don't know if you can hear him sniffling around. Yeah, I don't know what your favorites are. If you want to head over to our Twitter page, shout them out. You should. You absolutely should. Because I'm curious about what yours are. Let's start with kids. Kids, because this could go on for half the episode. Particularly my favorite kids' pet movies. And we're just going to come straight out of the gate with Babe. Babe, folks. If you haven't seen it, you got to see it. You got kids. This is one of the best, not one of the even best pet movies of all time, I'd say, but one of the best kids movies of all time in general. It's about a little pig. His name's Babe. And he lives on a farm, and he wants to become a sheep herding dog. Or I guess a sheep herding pig. And it's about how he gets there. He overcomes all the odds. He's a bit of an underdog, as they say. And the other dogs don't accept him, obviously. They don't think he can do it. And all the animals talk. It's a lot of fun. They're singing mice. They sing in between each. It's like broken into chapters. And they sing and they have fun. It's a great movie. It's on the same level as Charlotte's Web. It's not a lot like Charlotte's Web, but they're very similar because they're both about a little pig. Babe, I'd like Babe more than Charlotte's Web, personally. Charlotte's Web, I'm going to say I prefer the book. But they're both great movies. I don't know if you've ever seen the Charlotte's Web movie. There's a live action one that I haven't seen. I'm a little older. I've seen the old cartoon one, where the rat sings about the smorgasbord. It's the only reason I know that word is from that movie. That's a classic. That is a classic right there. You got to go check that out. ASAP. As with Babe. Two great pig farm movies. Another great kids movie, I'm going to say, it's hard for me to list these out because there's so many of my favorites. I'm going to say My Dog Skip. It's one I really like. It's got Frankie Muniz in it. I think it came out in like the early 2000s or something. And you remember Frankie Muniz from Malcolm in the Middle? You ever see that show? He's in it, and he gets a dog. It's like World War II era, and he wants to sign his dog up for the military. It's just a cute boyhood story about a boy and his dog. You know how that goes. There's like a million movies that are almost the same thing. And we could really break down the plot line of a lot of these movies. The kid gets the puppy, and the dad's like, hey, you know what? You're not ready. You're not ready for a dog. You can't get it. And then the mom makes the dad, or whatever, or somehow the parent is forced into having the dog. Like, all right, but you got to take care of it. And then they grow to love each other, and then something happens at the end where the dog gets hurt, and it's, very sad. I don't know why they all have to end like that. My Dog Skip is nice. I'm going to spoil it for you, sorry. The dog gets injured in the end, and goes to the vet, and lives. But a lot of them, they kill off the dog at the end of the movie. It's very, very sad. I don't know if it's supposed to be a lesson for children. Don't get too attached. But, it's a very, Old Yeller, Where the Red Fern Grows. Where the Red Fern Grows is maybe one of the saddest movies of all time. That's a classic pet film. And it breaks my heart every time I've ever seen it. I haven't seen it in a really, really long time. But it, along with the book, they're just like the saddest thing ever. Great movie, though. Great story, I guess I should say. Other kids' movies that I love. Dunstan Checks In. I don't know if you've seen this one. Came out in the 90s at some point. I was a baby in the 90s, so I don't know exactly when it came out. But it's about a orangutan, I think it is. it's either an orangutan or a chimpanzee. One of the more human-like monkeys somehow ends up at a hotel. This kid lives at a hotel. I think his father's the hotel manager or something. Kid lives at the hotel, and then somehow a monkey ends up there, and the monkey ends up living with the kid. I actually don't exactly remember the entire plot line. Very absurd. Would never actually happen. Or very unlikely to happen. I don't know what the super, rich hotel livers do, but I assume they don't have a monkey running around. But yeah, the monkey lives in the hotel, runs around causing all sorts of destruction and problems for the hotel staff. Really, if it happened in person, it would be a big issue. If Dunstan actually checked in, there would be a lot of problems at the hotel. And I can't remember what who the protagonist even is in the movie. If it's like the, I don't know, the owner of the hotel, who knows? Anyways, folks, we're just burning through time here. We're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to stick to kids' movies for at least another segment because there's so many of them. So stick around. Talk to you in a second.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
And we're back, folks. We're talking about movies, particularly pet movies. Obviously, this is the pet podcast. A lot of us are stuck inside right now, nothing to do. We're going a little stir crazy. Throw in a pet movie. There's a, I don't know if all of these are on Netflix. I'm sure you can find them somewhere on the internet. Everyone's got some streaming service now. You can listen to anything, basically, or watch anything you want to. Myself, there's a video store still open in my town. Not a Blockbuster. They are gone the way of the dodo, but it's called Top Hat Video. And it's great, except now you can't browse. You can't go inside the store anymore. You have to pull up to the curb and call them and basically know what you want. And it's really tough for me. I got to browse. Something's got to catch my eye. I can't just, it's not as fun. All I can think about are movies that I've already seen. I don't want to go rent a movie I've already seen a million times. So, that's the biggest problem in my life right now. Let's get back in these kids' movies, though. We just talked about Dunstan checks in. Would have been a huge issue. Probably a health hazard, too, for not just the people in the hotel, but the monkey. Or primate, I guess. It's an orangutan. Dunstan should never have checked in. They should have never given him a key card. The bellboy should never have taken his luggage. Never allowed at the pool. There's no way he could be allowed at the pool. I'm sure he goes to the pool in the movie. It's been a long time since I've seen it. Turner and Hooch. This is one of my faves of all time. It's got Tom Hanks in it. Tom Hanks is awesome, as always. I hope get well soon, Tom Hanks. He's got the Tom Hanks disease right now. But Turner and Hooch, it's about a special investigator. I don't know if he's a special investigator, but an investigator. Police department. He's investigating a murder. He goes to this junkyard finds the guy murdered, and then the guy's dog is still there, so he adopts the dog, thinking that it will help him solve the murder. Like maybe the dog saw something, maybe the dog can... also kind of an absurd plot, but it works out in the end. And then, like it's kind of like the movie Beethoven, if you've ever seen that, with the St. Bernard. Gets the dog, and it's this big mastiff, and it causes all these issues at his house, wrecks his whole house, and causes all these problems. But in the end, it helps him solve the crime. And I think, I won't spoil it for you, I won't tell you the end. But, the dog ends up in the vet at some point. Tom Hanks is sad. I think the dog lives. Anyways, Air Bud. Everyone's seen this one. This one is just a classic of classics. Basketball playing dog. I think it's like an abused circus dog, and ends up with a family, and the kid somehow ends up on a basketball court, and turns out the dog can play basketball. What are the odds? Very low, folks. But that's a great one. They've made 1 million now. I go to Walmart sometimes, and there's 10 Air Buds. And I think there's an Air Bud in space even. Who knows how that came to be. And then there's like a series of Air Puppies too. And the Air Puppies, I think it must be Air Bud's children, his offspring, and they also play sports. It's an athletic family of dogs. And the Golden Retriever, cute movie. Benji. Benji is, I forget what kind of dog that is. It's a Benji. We'll just call it that. Benji's, if you're a little older, you might remember Benji. But I think I haven't seen Benji since I was a tiny little kid. And I remember I used to watch it all the time. And I think the kids, they get kidnapped or something in the end, and Benji comes to save them. I think that's what happens. And they also made a Benji 2 for some reason. Some movies don't need a sequel, folks. Benji's one of them. Let's be honest. Benji's great. 101 Dalmatians. I prefer the cartoon version to the live action one. The live action one's fine, but the classic Disney cartoon version's better. The live action one's scary. Glenn Close plays the protagonist in that. Cruella de Vil, which it took me forever to put it together. Cruel Devil. Cruella de Vil, Cruel Devil. Not really trying to hide much with the name. Anyways, she wants to make a coat out of Dalmatians, which is disgusting. I can't imagine what you would have to be going through your mind to think that was a good idea. PETA is going to be at your doorstep immediately. You get caught walking around in a Dalmatian skin shirt, and everyone knows what that is. And it's not necessarily a good look either. On top of being obscenely cruel, it's also just an ugly look. So, Cruella de Vil, come on, pull it together. Be a little more discreet if you're going to be slaughtering animals. And also, why do you need 101? How many coats do you make? You're going to line the inside of your car? Come on. So that movie's a classic, and it's a good love story too. What's another good kids one before we end this segment? I want to squeeze in one more kids movie before we move to a different genre. Free Willy. Free Willy got a soundtrack by Michael Jackson. Hold me. Na-na-na-na-na-na. Remember that song? Maybe. The little delinquent kid gets sent to a foster home. I believe it's a foster home. Or he just gets sent to his regular parents and they can't control him. but he's like gets caught spray painting at what looks like a SeaWorld or something, which, SeaWorld probably shouldn't have orcas to begin with. Let's save that for another episode. Meets the orca and then frees it. And I can't remember what, happens in the course of events that makes it so that he needs to free Willie. But yeah, they put it in a bay before the cops can show up. It jumps over a big rock barrier into the ocean, which, it's the rock barrier and him jumping into the ocean. It's on the cover of the DVD, which is kind of a spoiler. The climax is, you open the DVD case, you know what's happening at the very end. But, it's a kid's movie. They don't open the DVD case as we do. Folks, it's already time for another break. We're going to take a quick break here. And I'm thinking maybe we do horror movies next. My favorite pet horror movies. So stick around. Talk to you in a sec.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
My friends, we are back. We just went through a bunch of kids' movies that I recommend if you're stuck inside. There's lots of them. There's lots of them, and a lot more that I didn't even get to. We could do a whole hour on just kids' pet movies, but that'd be boring. That would be really boring, and, kids, they want to watch the same movie 10 times over again anyways. I've always tried, my girlfriend has a daughter, and I always try and introduce her to new movies, and it's always a trouble. She always wants to rent Mary-Kate and Ashley again. I'm like, dude, Mary-Kate and Ashley, that was over 15 years ago. Why are you into Mary-Kate and Ashley? Anyways, that's her bag. We're going to do my favorite genre now, which is horror. One of my favorite genres. I like comedy, and I like horror. You mix the two together, you make an amazing treat. But horror pet movies. And I pulled up a list, like an online list of the top horror pet movies, and it's all wrong. It's all wrong. King Kong's on there. King Kong is not a horror movie. King Kong is a love story. Yeah, it's a love story, and it's also like a leave the gorillas alone story. Because, I don't know if you've ever seen King Kong. They go to the island, Skull Island, and the girl, somehow, she gets kidnapped by the locals, and they give her as a sort of sacrifice to Kong, who's this giant ape who lives on the island. And Kong falls in love with her. And then the evil movie director and his cronies kidnap Kong, take him back to New York, and Kong escapes. They try and do a show on Broadway, which, it never explains how they get Kong into the building to begin with. That is one thing that's always bothered me. It never shows you how they get Kong in the building or how Kong gets out of the building. Because it's a big theater, but, he's a monkey that's as big as a building. What is he? Probably 1/10 of the size of the Empire State Building. That's pretty big. That's pretty big to get into a Broadway theater. I know they have like magnificent set pieces, but they build the set pieces in the theater, I'm pretty sure, and deassemble them and then take them out. I don't know. I don't see how. That's a big plot hole that someone's going to need to explain to me. So yeah, King Kong's not a horror film. It's a love story. Get it right. List. This is IMDb too. They're supposed to be reputable. They do have one of my favorites on the list, though. I loved this movie when I was young. Not really a kid's movie, let's be honest. But I watched things I wasn't supposed to when I was a kid, when my parents went to bed, because we had a cable, and they cut out all the best parts. Anyways, Cujo. You ever seen Cujo? It's based off a Stephen King novel. And basically, what happens is, I forget what happens to Cujo that makes him go crazy. He's a big St. Bernard. He lives out in this farmhouse, and mom and her son go to visit this farmhouse, and somewhere down the line, Cujo has gone wrong and killed the owners of the farmhouse, who are the mom's family members, killed them, and then he comes after. They pull up, and Cujo's just crazy in the yard, and they get stuck in the car, and the car won't turn back on, the car breaks down, and they have to try and get away from Cujo, and they end up getting stuck in the car for days on end, and they can't get out. I'm sure there's some allegory there, that if I actually read the book, I never read Stephen King's books, I just watch the movies. I think that's satisfactory. Although, if you listen to Stephen King's reviews of any of his movies, or any movies that people have made off his books, he doesn't typically like them. I don't think they get to the heart of the allegory of the book. So, read the book first. I should probably do that too. I could probably explain the movie to you better that way. I'm sure there's some secret meaning, as I said. But yeah, the whole movie's pretty much them in this car with this giant monster dog trying to get at them, and they have to find a way to escape. I won't tell you how they do it, but it's pretty intense. A very intense movie. Don't watch this one with your kids. And kids, if you're going to watch it, wait till your parents are in bed. I probably shouldn't be recommending things like that, but, we're having a good time. So, Cujo, great one. Another great Stephen King one, Pet Sematary. This is one of my favorite horror movies of all time. Not just pet horror movies in general. And I've done a little bit on this one in the past. It's basically this doctor moves to this town. Excuse me, I have a hiccup. Doctor moves to this town. He opens up a practice in the town, and he moves his family next to this big, dangerous road where apparently only semi-drivers drive on, going way too fast, and the cat gets hit by a semi. Very sad. And the dad doesn't want the kids to know that the cat's died, and so he then goes to this neighbor. The neighbor's like, well, there's this old pet cemetery up the mountain. Some say there's magic in there, and, yada yada. It's this magical pet cemetery where if you bury your pet there, it comes back to life. But it's not the same. So he does that, and then demon pet comes, and there's a lot more to the movie than just the demon pet. It's not the only thing that gets buried at the pet cemetery. So, highly recommend that one. Not just as a pet movie, but as a great horror movie and a great movie in general. I didn't see the new one. There's a new one that came out last year or so, and I was actually kind of excited for it, and then it didn't get very good reviews, and I heard that they changed the plot all around and stuff and made it all different, and so I skipped it. Maybe I'll see it one of these days. I don't know. I don't know if it's worth it. It might ruin it for me, and I don't want one of my favorites to get ruined. I don't like enough remakes, and if you're going to remake it right. Enough remakes, enough reimaginings, enough sequels. It's too much. It's too much. Come up with something new. We're going to take another quick break here. We're going to do another 10 minutes on horror, I think, because, you know, I spent the first half talking about King Kong and how it's not a horror movie. It's a love story, obviously. IMBD. So, yeah, stick around. We'll be back in just a few.
Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
We are back again, talking about horror movies. We talked a little bit about King Kong. It's a good pet movie, I'd say. Or a good animal movie, I guess. I feel like it's got a good message, not really a horror movie. And a couple of Stephen King movies, highly recommended. Jaws, the classic, folks. They also made, I think, 8 of these or something. But Jaws is iconic. And it's a really good movie. I rewatched it recently. I hadn't seen it since I was really young. And I rewatched it and was like, oh, wow. This is... Not only is it a scary movie, it's just a good all-around movie. Basically, everyone knows the plotline. Giant shark terrorizes a small New Jersey town. And the sheriff has to stop it. For whatever reason. I don't know why they're not able to call in a professional. Actually, I think they do. I think they do call in a somewhat professional. It's like a guy who knows a lot about sharks. And then they go find some drunk old fisherman who's like, I can hunt the shark for the right price. It's kind of like Moby Dick. It's got a very Moby Dick vibe. If the sheriff had hired Captain Ahab. But, great movie. And pretty, you're scared to go in the water a little after it. It's like I think they say it in the tagline of the movie. It's rated PG, so that's a horror one that you can watch with your kids. However, PG was a lot looser back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s. There's some PG movies out there where it's rather surprising that they snagged that rating. But ratings meant nothing back then anyways. Jaws, great film. Highly recommend it. Everyone should see Jaws. And I honestly think everyone has seen Jaws at one point or another. Check that out. I'm scrolling through this list here, and there's a few more I want to talk about, and a few that I just want to lambast for even being on this list. Godzilla, not really a real animal. That's like a monster movie, technically. Not an animal horror movie. Arachnophobia. People have spiders as pets. And arachnophobia is kind of more like a comedy horror. However, I watched it somewhat recently, a couple years ago, and I didn't think it was very funny. But it's a good movie. It's especially if you have a fear of spiders, it's kind of freaky. Basically, they could go to South America or something, some exotic place, and a spider, this mystery spider, crawls into the guy's shoe, ends up back in the U.S., back in this small town, and then the spider overruns the whole town, and it kills you in one bite, like a Black Widow, which, by the way, I may have said this in an episode prior to this, but Black Widows, unless you're super old or super young, not that dangerous. You're going to get sick. It's going to suck if you get bit by one. But you're not going to die. The rumors are false. Is Charlotte a Black Widow in Charlotte's Web? Or is she just a regular spider? I can't remember. Arachnophobia. Check it out. It's not my highest recommendation, but it's a good movie. The Birds. The Birds is a classic. I haven't seen this in a really, really long time, so I don't exactly remember what exactly happens, if it even explains to you why the birds start attacking everyone, but a cute girl is in this beach town, and one day, just the birds start swooping down and attacking everyone. They start coming to the chimneys. There's a scene where the birds eat this guy's eyeballs out, and that's kind of like the climax of the horror. Great film. And I think they made a sequel too, which, who needs to see a sequel to The Birds? No one. It's directed by Alfred Hitchcock, though, who's one of the great directors of all time. So go check that one out. If you haven't seen that one, you got to see that one. That's just one you need to see for movies' sake, to have your movie knowledge up. And really any Alfred Hitchcock movie. This isn't a movie podcast, though, so won't get too deep into. I could do a whole episode on just Alfred Hitchcock, let's be honest. A million more Jaws movies. Wow, this list is just awful. Awful, awful list. If you're looking for good horror movies, don't go to IMDb. Willard, never saw it, so I can't speak for it. Gremlins. Now, Gremlins, it is a pet movie, I guess technically. It's basically what happens is this kid's dad brings him this Furby-looking thing from Chinatown, from some like underground shop in Chinatown, and there's all these rules about it, and you can't feed it this time, and you can't let it stay up past a certain hour, something like that. And if you do, it transforms into this horrible, horrible monster, and it overruns the town. That's basically what happens, is it multiplies and overruns this entire small town. This is a really good movie. Good for kids, too. I'm going to go as far and say it's a Christmas movie. Yes. So maybe save it until next Christmas. It can be a Christmas or a Halloween movie, but it takes place around Christmas time. So I'm going to say it's a Christmas movie. Funny. This has all the elements of a movie that I like. It's funny, some action, light action, great acting, and horror. But it's not really a horror movie. It's not one that, will keep you up with nightmares. None of the animal horror movies really are like nightmare movies, I'd say, because they're always kind of a little absurd. Maybe Jaws. My girlfriend hates sharks. So, I watch shark videos all the time online, and she is terrified by the things. We're already running out of time for this segment. Let's do one more horror movie. Congo. They go to the Congo, they're looking for gorillas. They find this horrible tribe of scary, crazy gorillas that they just are vicious. They're ripping everyone's arms off and having a good old time. And this is one where you kind of want the gorillas to win. Frankly, I know what happens to gorillas in the wild, and they're losing habitat. You're kind of rooting for the gorillas in this one. And gorillas are just awesome. Anyways, I love monkeys, I love gorillas, so any horror movie, or like King Kong, I'm always rooting for the gorilla, for the monkey to win. Except in Planet of the Apes, which we'll talk about next segment. We're going to take a quick break here. I will talk to you again in a moment.
The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered. Download the GSMC Travel Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
We're back, baby. We're talking about pet movies. We're talking about maybe not just pet movies anymore. Let's kind of transform into animal movies. We left off, I was talking about, just started talking about Planet of the Apes. Not the new one. I don't like the new ones. They're too CGI. I don't know. The ones were kind of, there's one with Mark Wahlberg that came out in like 2000 or something that was terrible. And then there's been a new series of them that is like the origins of it. And I don't really want to know the origins. I liked it better when you left that to the imagination. You don't have to explain everything. Everything doesn't have to be explained in movies. That's the problem, again, with these remakes and reimaginings. They always are like, well, remember that secret that you never knew? Let me explain it for you. It's like, it's better left to the imagination. It's more fun that way. And then you get then you are always wanting to know. You always wish you knew. And then they explain it, and they never do a good job of explaining it. It's never what you wanted it to be. But Planet of the Apes is another one that's not just a great animal movie. It's one of the best movies of all time. One of the best movies of all time. You heard it here. Not first, everyone knows that. Who's the guy in that movie? Famous old actor, Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston? That's his name. They're traveling through space, and they go through some sort of wormhole or something, and then they end up on a planet that's inhabited by, like, primitive humans, and it kind of seems like they've either gone to a different planet or gone back in time or something. And then these horse-riding apes, evolved apes, start rolling through and capturing people in nets. And they use humans as their scientists or their pets and their slaves and stuff. And Dr. Zaius, a lot of people know this movie. Dr. Zaius is a hero. Kind of, actually, no, he's actually kind of a bad guy. So yeah, and then he finds out, he escapes the apes and finds a secret cave where he learns that he was on Earth all along. That the Planet of the Apes is actually Earth. He just went through some time warp and went into the future. And then they made these new movies that are try and teach you, like, oh, it was actually a secret, it was a medical chemical test that they were using on the apes that turned them against us. And why you gotta do that to us? You're wrong. It's not as good. We're running out of time here. I've got a million more movies to go through. Let's do a quick list of animated bests. Lion King, my favorite movie of all time. Not the new one, Not the new, again, remake where they gotta do it all CGI and look, they're real animals now. No, I just want to see the cartoon. They're not real. I like the cartoon version. They don't have to be all real. And then real ones, they have no emotion. I tried watching it. They've got no heart. Like in the animated one, they've got, you can see the emotion in their face, and now it's like these real animals, and you're like, what? I feel like, I don't know, a computer's talking to me with these things. You got to see the emotion. Finding Nemo is amazing. Lion King, Finding Nemo. Finding Nemo, fish child gets lost, ends up halfway across the world in a fish tank, and his dad goes out to find him. His fish dad. Clownfish is what they are. They live in the anemones. It's a fun joke in the movie. Fox and the Hound, that's a heart warmer. This is basically, we're restarting at the kids' movies again. One of my favorites, not really a animated movie, or a kids movie, or even necessarily a pet movie, or even an animal movie. Unless you consider, dinosaurs are technically animals, but Jurassic Park. This is my favorite movie from childhood, maybe one of my favorite movies of all time. Again, the new one's crap. Sorry if you like them. That's just how I feel. And really, any one besides the first one isn't very good. But the first one, Jurassic Park, OG, based off a book, probably why it's good and the other ones aren't. Scientists find a way to go into the amber with like an old mosquito in it and get dinosaur DNA, and they start recreating the dinosaurs to make this theme park. Everyone's seen this movie. I don't even know why I'm going to explain it to you, but it's so good. I recommend showing this one to young children, because I used to watch it when I was a young kid, and I would pretend to be a dinosaur. Kids love dinosaurs, and I know a lot of you got your kids at home all day now. You want to go downstairs and take a nap, and Jurassic Park, you just slide that baby into the DVD player, flip it on the Netflix, and you got an hour and a half of kids totally entertained. It's kind of scary, but I'd say not too scary to show a kid. There is a little blood, just in case you're curious. A little bit of blood, but don't get too hung up on that. They've gotten bloody noses before they know what blood looks like. And especially little boys. Little boys think dinosaurs are the coolest thing ever. Check it out. Show your little kids Jurassic Park. What's another one? Here's one I don't really like. Stuart Little. I don't know. He just bugs me. Stuart bugs me. His pants don't fit right. I know he's a mouse and he's wearing human clothes, and I don't know what it is I don't like. Stuart just rubs me the wrong way. He's a mouse. I never really understood mice as pets. And he's too smart for his own good. They made a sequel to this one too. I remember I saw both when I was a kid. But yeah, I don't know. His smile bugs me. It's again, and maybe it's the thing with the no emotion in the face, because he's got these little black beady eyes. So it's like a snake. Yeah, Stuart Little bothers me. So I don't recommend Stuart Little. Lassie, never seen it. Can't really speak for it. Dr. Dolittle. Dr. Dolittle. They just made a new one of this. I don't know how it is. I'm going to assume it's not good. Because that's how I feel about all these remakes, remasters, re-whatevers. All the re's. I don't need a reason why to watch the same movie over again. Just with a different actor. But the old Dr. Dolittle with Eddie Murphy, who's one of the most hilarious people ever, is awesome. Basically, he's a doctor and he can talk to animals. And that's all you need to know. That's all you need to know. They made a sequel to Babe. Pig in the City. Why? I don't know. I don't know, write a letter to the movie studio because that was the wrong move. Babe doesn't need to be in the city. He's a sheep herding dog. Why does he go to the city? He wins at the end of the first movie. We don't need to continue the story of Babe. Same with The Lion King. They made like 3 sequels to that. There was one that was like Timon and Pumbaa's story. I'm a critical guy. Let's take a quick break here. We're already nearing the end. When we get back, I'm going to do my least favorite animal movies. How about that? Since I'm kind of getting off to that right now. I'll talk to you in just a minute.
Want to find out what movies to go see? Then check out the GSMC Movie Podcast. It's your ticket to the latest movies, whether it's a new blockbuster event, romantic, comedy, or action flick. This show has got it all covered. They talk some what to go see now. Don't bother. What's hot on Netflix and everything in between. That's GSMCpodcast.com/movie-podcast. When it's all about the movies, it has to be this new show. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Alright, my friends, fortunately we are nearing the end. Hope you liked my movie recommendations while you're stuck inside. They're pretty good, I think. And I'm going to tell you right now which ones you shouldn't watch. And, I could have done a whole episode on this. I won't do a whole episode on this. I will condense it to these next 8 minutes. But let's start with honestly, let's be honest. I don't really think they should have made anything after the first Air Bud. Shouldn't have been an Air Bud 2. There shouldn't be an Air Bud 14 or whatever they're on now. Any sequels, honestly. Animal movie sequels don't work. Animals, they got one movie. You got one movie to do with the animal, it's done. So that's all the extra Land Before Times, all the Jurassic Parks. There's a million different versions of King Kong now. No, King Kong, I don't know, goes to San Francisco or something. I saw one once, and it was King Kong's, like, son of Kong. And King Kong died. He fell off the Empire State Building. Leave it at that. Let him die in peace. Let him die with honor. Because then they just have to kill him all over again, and his son. It's bad. Those new Alvin and the Chipmunk movies, all these super CGI ones, I don't like. I like animal movies with real animals in it. I don't want talking, dancing. It can talk if it's a real animal. How about that? But yeah, like all these Alvin and the Chipmunk movies, I'm not a big fan of. They made a bunch of Garfield ones that are trash. Let's just say that. They're trash. Trash films. What's another one that I didn't really like? Lassie I found to be boring. It's not as good as Old Yeller. If you're going to watch an old classic like that, go Old Yeller. Old Yeller's way better. I'm sure a lot of people think that's boring too, but I think it's better than Lassie, at least. This new movie came out, A Dog's Purpose. I started watching it with my girlfriend, didn't like it. The CGI Scooby-Doo movies. If you're going to watch Scooby-Doo, watch the classics. You got to go back and get the old episodes. I think they're streaming somewhere right now for free. It might be Netflix. Watch the classic Scooby-Doos, not the new CGI. Again, Scooby-Doo, ruining the Doo, ruining the Scoob. None of that. None of that. Benji, they made a sequel to. Don't watch any of the Benji sequels. They're all garbage. I will say Gremlins 2 is actually decent. That's the only one. But those aren't even real animals. Like I said, it's basically a Furby that turns into a lizard beast. Kangaroo Jack. Now, this one is almost so bad it's good. This is a real pile of trash. I'm hoping all remnants of this movie got burnt up in those Australian fires, because Kangaroo Jack was one of maybe the worst movie that's ever been made. Arguably the worst movie that's ever been made. So don't go see that one. It's terrible. Unless you like movies that are so bad they're good, which I kind of do. So, if that's your thing, then I do recommend it. What's the sequel I was just thinking of that I also didn't like? Oh, Dr. Dolittle 2. And then they made a third one where it's like Dr. Dolittle's daughter. Just because you're related to the person doesn't mean you get their same powers. That's not how powers work. Sorry. So Dr. Dolittle 2, no good. And Dr. Dolittle 3, no good. I think there's probably a fourth one too. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and say the new one's not good, and I haven't even seen it. I'm throwing it out there. They made a Tom and Jerry movie. That was pretty good. It came out in the 90s or something. That was fine. But usually, the TV to movie ones, they don't work for me. I don't like them very much. So I don't recommend seeing any of those. Ace Ventura 2, or even Ace Ventura 1. It's a classic. People love it. I'm not a huge fan. I think there's better Jim Carrey movies. But as far as animal, it's probably not the worst. Yeah. You can watch that one. You can see that one and not be too dissatisfied. Homeward Bound 2. What are the odds that two dogs and a cat get lost twice? And it's another one that they get stuck in a city somehow. Who are these owners where they lose their 3 animals twice? Why? If I was those animals, I wouldn't even try to escape back to them. I would find a new family. Because they honestly, it seems like they're trying to get rid of you. All Dogs Go to Heaven, that's a good one. But then they made a sequel to that, which is, how many times can you go to heaven? How many times? You're not a cat. You don't have 9 lives. You're a dog. Dogs, you get 1 life. Sorry. We don't need to see another you go to heaven and somehow get back into your body. Those are really, I like most animal movies, so it's kind of hard for me to make a list of ones that I don't like and get into it at least in 10 minutes. If I had more time, I could really break apart every one of these movies and just rip it to shreds. I'm going to tell you one more you should watch before we have to go here. Kung Fu Panda. There we go. And that's actually one where the sequels are good. All the sequels are prime, in my opinion. I don't speak for everyone. Remember, everything I say on here is subjective, folks. And if you don't like my subjective opinion on these pet movies or my pet advice, go over to our Twitter. Tell it to me straight. We got the GSMC Pet Podcast Twitter. We got the GSMC Pet Podcast Instagram you can go talk to me on. You got the GSMC Pet Podcast Facebook. And then check out our other GSMC podcasts as well. We got movie ones, we got science fiction ones, book ones, pretty much any category that you can think of. We got a podcast for it, and it's pretty dang good. I like them. Thank you for tuning in, folks, for another GSMC Pet Podcast. Head over to our website, GSMCpodcasts.com, and you can leave us a 5-star review, or go to the Apple Store, wherever you're listening. Leave us a 5-star review. You have no idea how much that helps us. It's what keeps us going. It's what makes all this work, what makes the gears turn and the podcasts produce. So stick around, for next week's podcast, we will be back. I think we got one coming out tomorrow. I think we have one almost every day of the week for the pet podcast. So limitless content here, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Again, remember, check us out on social media. I'm your host, Taylor Cowan. I like you more than a friend. Have a wonderful evening, morning, afternoon, whatever it will be. Talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the GSMC Pets Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast.